Hello, everybody. Here's Natasha Koo from the Feminine Space podcast, and welcome to the very first episode of this interview series where we discover and explore our greater purpose. So, this series is going to be so beautiful because I have a lineup of ladies who I have been blessed to meet from all over the world. And today we are here with Jade Willow Song. She's a mother of one grown daughter, two dogs, a wife, retired social worker, and is currently working as an intuitive tea therapist. So welcome, Jade, to this podcast, and it's so lovely to have you.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here.
So tell me a little bit about how you've ended up being an intuitive tea therapist. That seems like, I don't know, a growth or a transformation from being a social worker. So how did that exactly happen?
It's a long path to how we got here. I never wanted to be a social worker, to be honest. I wanted to be a writer. But my parents wouldn't fund that, wouldn't send me to school for that. So the only other thing I was good at was people bringing me their troubles and listening to their problems. So that's how I ended up being a social worker. And it was an amazing experience for 28 years. I worked in so many different fields. I worked with adults and children with special needs. I worked in long-term care with those with Alzheimer's. I worked as a therapist, and I worked in hospice. And those were my two favorites: hospice and working with those with the special needs. Because when people allow you on those journeys with them, it's such an intimate view. And people die the way they live. So there's no pretense. There's no pretending to be something they aren't, because they know that time is precious. They only have a few minutes. That does not mean that everybody gets that Hallmark movie ending, but they do really show you their real selves. And I got so much education about living by walking with them as they were dying. I did that for 10 years, and that's really unheard of in the field. The burnout rate is about 3 or 4 years. So, and that's because I went in knowing I was walking with them until they died, rather than thinking there was going to be a different outcome. And then, excuse me, and then also allowing that knowledge and wisdom they pass on to me to enhance my own life. So now, along about the time I started in social work, I also met a woman who introduced me into the metaphysical world, energy healing, so that I could help people in hospice who were out of pain control to help manage their pain. And I was doing that, and everything was fine. And then my daughter was born. And she had a myriad of medical issues. We lost the baby before her. Then we had trouble with her pregnancy. Then she was born 7 weeks early. And after that, she developed a mass in her abdomen. And I took her we lived in Chicago, or near Chicago then, so I took her to Chicago Children's Memorial, where they said that they had to do surgery. And they just wanted to see, because she was so little, she was only 3 months, they wanted to see how fast it was growing before they decided if they, could maybe give her a little time. Well, I took her home. What they wanted me to do was go home, wait a month, and bring her back. And they would take another ultrasound and see how fast it had grown. Well, the thought of this perfect child being cut open made me sick. Like, I just couldn't imagine it. So I thought, if this energy work can help dying people with pain, what else can it do? So every minute I had with her, whether I was changing her diaper or giving her a bath or just holding her, I was doing energy work. And I was, just allowing the body to do what it needed to do and supporting it with the energy through me from the universe. And when I took her back 30 days later, the mass was gone. And the doctors could not explain it. They said they don't go away on their own. They only just get bigger, or they entangle the intestines and kill the child. And they couldn't explain it. They knew it was there. They saw it, but they couldn't explain it. And here's your baby, go home. So that was sort of life's way of getting me on my path. So side by side then, as I worked in the social work field, I was working in the metaphysical field, and I was educating myself on crystal healing, all sorts of energy healing. I was developing my intuition. And then I was also working on my ego, the personal development, and trying to be the best, the best mother I could be for my daughter. So I came up with the name Intuitive Chi Therapist not that long ago because I kept trying on all of these terms that didn't fit. I wasn't a life coach. I didn't really like being a spiritual advisor. I didn't like being an energy healer. None of them seemed to fit. And I thought, well, what is it that I do? Well, I intuitively manipulate chi for therapeutic value. So that's how it came to that word.
That's amazing. Sometimes we feel that we need to fit into a certain box, that my career or my job or who I am needs to fit what I already know. And sometimes our experiences lead us to such a beautiful place that our mind needs to catch up. At least that was my experience, because I also stumbled upon energy healing, and that was the beginning of my path to work with women and all. But I thought that my mind, my thinking really needed to catch up to what was happening and try to then begin to label it in a good way, to classify it so that I can actually communicate to others what it is that I'm doing. So I love how you're carving your own path out, and just that example of needing to find that name, that title for yourself. You have every right to, and plus it's your very own. So that's so beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. It's really amazing to hear how just from your intuition, from what you could soak up at that time, you were able to channel so much healing, so much good, and create such a big change, not only in your life, because you have a healthy daughter and that's beautiful, but to impact another person and have that kind of impact on another human being. Did you ever think that that was possible? Like, was that scary for you? Was that a surprise? How was it for you in that experience?
Surprise is a great word. No, under any stretch of the imagination did I think that that was really possible. I have always been an empath, but I didn't know it until about 5 years ago. What I knew was exploring through, going through life is I knew things that I shouldn't know, and it kind of freaked people out. I understood things that people didn't want me to understand, and it freaked people out. So then I was labeled too sensitive. And so then I took responsibility for everything, right? It must be my fault. I'm too sensitive. So coming to that understanding that I was empathic, it was scary and surprising all at the same time. But that's more recent, going back to the energy work, because they're really so interrelated, and that's, I didn't mean to come out of the blue, but when I first realized, when I was first working in hospice and helping people relieve their pain, I kind of still didn't believe it. And when I healed Emma's mass, I still kind of didn't get it. It wasn't until I had a gentleman on my table who had been in a forklift accident 10 years before. His foot at the ankle, his ankle got caught between the forklift and the concrete wall, and it all but severed it. It was just hanging on by some ligaments, and skin. And he had really taken such a positive outlook. He really embraced his limp as sort of his gangster walk. He really kind of made a joke and made it part of his character. And I had him on the table. He was really just curious about what I do. So I thought, well, it's really just easier to show you. So I had him on the table, and I did the work and worked a little bit, I remember, on his abdomen, and worked on his ankle, of course. And we talked afterwards while he was still on the table. And he's like, oh, I really felt, your hands here. And I said, well, I didn't touch you, though. That's really interesting that you could feel that, and I didn't actually lay hands on you. And he swears to this day that I laid hands on him. And he said the same thing about his ankle. And I said, I didn't. I absolutely did not touch you. But that's how powerful this energy is. And so we were talking. I always tell people, get up from the table real slowly, just whatever, take your time. And so he gets up and he starts walking, and it's not a big deal. And then all of a sudden he realized his limp was gone. It was just completely gone. And it's because he had stored this old trauma in there, and we freed it, and now he no longer needed it. That was when I first really got it, that what I do impacts other people and changes lives. It can be the smallest thing, and it can be the grandest thing. And then, he could have easily limped again. He could have felt like his identity was wrapped up in that, and his body could have remembered that energy and put it back, and he would have had his limp back. But that was 4 or 5 years ago now. Maybe longer. No, it's longer. And he still walks without a limp.
That's so great.
Isn't that amazing what energy in the body can do?
Yeah. Sometimes we feel like, okay, emotionally I can overcome a certain trauma or a certain something. That's possible for me, but we sometimes forget or don't realize that the physical, the energetic, it's the same. If we can heal ourselves emotionally, why can't we physically? Isn't it all just the same, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. So it seems like the universe gave you kind of little nudges or big or big neon signs shining really brightly to show you, okay, this is the way, or this is it. It's real. So did you begin to trust more and more then in yourself and in what could be possible for you as a career or a lifestyle?
I never thought of it as a career until 3 years ago. And that's when I made this huge leap. I was divorced from my daughter's father. He ended up being narcissistic. And although we were of the same vibration when we met and married, we moved in completely different vibrational directions. And it took me 23 years to give that up, because I'm really one of those people that every problem has a solution. You can work anything out. I just didn't realize that he was lying. I really didn't. As empathic as I was, when you're immersed in it, it's very hard to distinguish the mud from the water, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to draw that final line and walk away. And I did that. And then I met another man probably about 3 years later. And I had really no intentions of having another relationship, but it was meant to be. So I welcomed him into my life. And 6 months later, now this is me still working in social work, 6 months after we met, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And I have now dubbed that the empath's disease. Every person that I know that has fibromyalgia is empathic, but is not managed. And which means they've been storing all the negativity from everybody else and not healing themselves. So even though I was doing metaphysical work and healing all these people and doing cleansings, it's not like I didn't understand you cleanse yourself after healing. I did not understand that basically as an empath, you have to do cleansings just like walking to the grocery store. You know, you're just going to absorb everything, like the whole world filters through you. So instead of knowing that, and plus I worked in a toxic environment, and I had this career that I think was killing my soul. So all of these things together created this in my body. And it was really hard for me to work an 8-hour day and then have any kind of life. And so now over the course of some 10 years, I had been writing notes and I was compiling them into a book. So right about this time, the book was done and I was looking for a publisher, and I was talking to a publisher. And the more I was talking to her about this book and what I really like to do, which is work with people on making, on healing their lives, whether that's physical, emotional, whatever. The more I talked to her about it, the more dissatisfied I became with work. And I thought, my significant other lived across 2 states away, and we're not young people anymore. So we don't have like all these tomorrows. And we just started asking ourselves, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we waiting for? And so we tried for him to move where I was so I could keep my job. And the universe, it's always in control and always supporting you. The universe, 9 months of looking for a job and going on interview after interview, he got one job offer. And the job offer was for like a half hour outside of where he lives, not where he was looking, right? So he took that job. And we thought, well, we'll be apart, and then, for a couple of years, and then maybe they'll move him and relocate him. And 6 months into it, that's when the book was coming to be. And I said, what are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, we have no guarantee that in 5 years, either one of us is even going to be on the planet. We don't know that 2 years they'll move you. We don't know. So I decided to quit my job and move myself and my daughter across 2 states. And that's when it struck me that I just can't go back to that old kind of thinking where it's just, I need to have a job and I need to do something in order to make money and support myself. And thankfully his business is supporting us right now as I get this, my health in order. I'm still recovering from the fibromyalgia, but I can say I take absolutely no pharmaceuticals. I suffer very little discomfort and symptoms. Every once in a while, like now when it's like negative 23 degrees, my body lets me know it, but I'm really kind and cautious about it. And I manage it well. And so that's how I took that leap to just step fully into being a medicine woman.
One thing is to be nudged by the universe a little bit. Another is to actually take that step yourself. So what a beautiful story. And that's courage right there. That's strength right there to trust and to take that leap of faith and to keep going, even if, you get a big bump on the road. And what I learned from you right now is also that just because you step, into a new lane and you're like, oh, that is mine, I've been waiting for that. And then something happens where it makes you kind of slow down. That doesn't mean that was a bad choice. Like that doesn't actually mean anything. And when you say you're being kind to yourself, you're being patient, you're being very loving and caring to yourself at this point, right? So that you can regain that energy and then spread it out again, or give back into the world again. And I think sometimes as women, we push ourselves so much and we take it personally when something happens or we come down with something. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing the kindness that you extend to yourself, because over time that kindness is actually gonna pour out and forth towards others in this world. That's beautiful.
That's the biggest lesson I have had to dance with. Sometimes I sit with things, sometimes I dance with them. This one I've danced with because it was really easy to start judging myself because things didn't go the way I wanted. I kind of said, oh, I'm going to take this big leap. The universe is going to reward me. I'm going to get online. I'm going to say a couple of things to a couple of people, and I'm going to have a whole roster full of clients. It just has not worked out that way. But I wouldn't have been ready if it had. I wouldn't have been ready because there were so many shifts that needed to occur, and they could only occur in the absence of all of that rhetoric of the 9-to-5 kind of world. And there was my own trauma that I was holding in my body that I had to release, like I had helped that guy release. And so it just has been, every single moment has been exactly the way it needed to go, even though it's not at all the way I had hoped it would go.
Oh, yes, I know that one. Oh, thank you so much. That's invaluable, everything that you're sharing. Not just the power that we have innately in each one of us, plus the kindness we extend to ourselves is not limited to just us receiving that, but it gives to others at the very end. And also being very open to however your path actually unfolds.
Yes.
And I really see that it's taking you to a really beautiful place, and that patience I value very much, and I see that in you. I feel that within you, and I know that for many of the listeners, sometimes we are afraid to take that step because we don't know how long it would take. We don't know if it would work or not. But in the end, it doesn't matter how long it takes, as long as we do give it a try. So thank you for being, a living example, a sister who's actually letting it be your life so that you can show us the very same lessons.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Time goes on no matter what. Whether, if it takes 5 years from where you take your first step, that 5 years is going to pass regardless of whether you take it or not. So you might as well take it.
Good point. It's funny how we see the world sometimes. It's like black and white, and yeah, hearing another perspective is sometimes just what we need to understand things clearly again. So Absolutely. I understand that you also have a blog and also a Facebook group. So why don't you let the audience know how they can find you or more of your work, how they can get in touch with you after this episode launches?
The easiest way is on Facebook. I have a page, Jade Willow Song, and I also have Willow Song Medicine Woman. Both pages work. And the group is called Willow Song Firekeepers, because I think it's really, important, this idea of the sacred fire being tended. And I think we've let it go out, or at least dim really low. And we as women, especially, but not exclusively. I think I really find a deficit in this whole just women's only thing, because we need to partner with men. We need their yang as well as they need our yin. So Willow Song Firekeepers, and then Willow Song Medicine Woman is the blog and the page where you can find out more about me. That's willowsongmedicine.wordpress.com.
Awesome. So everybody, if you didn't catch all the links, you can find all the information at femininespace.com/Jade Willow Song. So that's JADEWILLOW Song SONG. And there you'll get all the contact details in case you miss any of them. So I really do encourage that you reach out, you follow Jade, see how her journey keeps unfolding, because every woman who we interview is just a snapshot of where have we been, as much as we can recall. There's so much more to it this point in time, but it's gonna keep unfolding, and none of us really knows how powerful this network becomes, how each of our stories will ultimately impact the world. So go ahead, follow one another, and thank you, Jade, for coming on to our show. It's been such a blessing, And I wish you, really all the best going forward with all the impact you're going to have in the world, and also, of course, on your family too.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for providing this space for us. You're really so necessary. Thank you so very much.
All right. So thanks everybody for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. So thanks, Jade, and bye everybody.